Hi, boys and girls. I hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much for joining me in our reading of Pippi in the South Seas, Chapter 5. And this chapter is called Pippi Gets a Letter. Let's see what happens. The days went by, and all of a sudden it was autumn. First autumn, and then winter. A long, cold winter that seemed as if it would never end. Tommy and Danica were very busy at school, and with every day that went by, they felt more tired and had a harder time getting up in the morning. Mrs. Settergren began to be really worried about their paleness and their lack of appetite. On top of everything, both of them had suddenly caught the measles and had to stay in bed for a couple of weeks. It would have been 2 very dreary weeks, indeed, if Pippi hadn't come and done tricks outside their window every day. The doctor had forbidden her from going into the sick room because measles were so contagious, and Pippi obeyed, although she said that she would undertake to crack 1 or 2 billion measles microbes between her fingernails during the course of an afternoon. But no one had forbidden her to do tricks outside the window. The children's room was on the 2nd floor, and Pippi had raised a ladder to their window. It was very exciting for Tommy and Danica to lie in their beds and try to guess how Pippi would look when she appeared on the ladder, because she never looked the same 2 days in a row. Sometimes she would be dressed as a chimney sweep, sometimes as a ghost in a white sheet, and sometimes she appeared as a witch. Then she would act amusing skits outside the window, playing all the parts herself. Now and then she did acrobatics on the stepladder. And what acrobatics! She could stand on the topmost rung and let the ladder sway back and forth until Tommy and Danica screamed in terror because it looked like she would come crashing down at any moment. But she didn't. When she was going to climb down again, she always went head first just so that it would be more amusing for Tommy and Danica to watch. Every day she went to town to buy apples and oranges and candy. She put everything into a basket and attached it to a long string. Then Mr. Nilsson climbed up with the string to Tommy, who opened the window and hoisted up the basket. Sometimes Mr. Nilsson would also bring letters from Pippi when she was busy and couldn't come herself. But that didn't happen often because Pippi was on the ladder practically all the time. Sometimes she pressed her nose up against the window pane and turned her eyelids inside out and made the most terrible faces. She said to Tommy and Danica that she would give each of them a gold coin if they could keep from laughing at her. But of course they couldn't. They laughed so hard that they almost fell out of their beds. Gradually they became well again and were allowed to get up. But oh, how pale and thin they were! Pippi was sitting with them in their kitchen the first day they were up, watching them eat their cereal. That is, they were supposed to be eating cereal, but they weren't doing very well. It made their mother terribly nervous to see them sitting there and picking at it. "Eat your cereal," she said. Danica stirred hers around in the dish with her spoon a bit, but she knew that she wasn't going to get any of it down. "Why do I have to eat it anyway?" she said complainingly. "How can you ask anything so silly?" said Pippi. "Of course you have to eat your good cereal. If you don't eat your good cereal, then you won't grow and get big and strong. And if you don't get big and strong, then you won't have the force to force your children, when you have some, to eat their cereal." "No, Danica, that won't do. Nothing but the most terrible disorder and cereal eating would come of this, if everyone talked like you." Tommy and Danica ate 2 spoonfuls of cereal each. Pippi watched them with great sympathy. "You ought to go to sea for a while," she said, rocking back and forth on the chair on which she was sitting. "Then you would soon learn how to eat. I remember once when I was on my father's ship, and Friedolf, one of our able-bodied seamen, suddenly one morning couldn't eat more than 7 plates of cereal. My father was beside himself with worry over poor Friedolf. "Friedolf, old boy," he said in a choked voice, "I'm afraid that you've got a terrible consuming disease. It's best that you stay in your bunk today until you feel better and can eat normally. I'm coming back to tuck you in and give you some strengthening medicine." It's called medicine, said Anika. And Friedolf staggered to bed, Pippi went on, because he was worried himself and wondered what sort of epidemic he could be having, since he was only able to eat 7 helpings of cereal. He was just lying there wondering whether he would live until evening when my father came back with the medicine. A black, disgusting-looking medicine it was, but you could say what you wanted about it. It was strengthening. Because when Friedolf had swallowed the first spoonful, flames broke out from his mouth. He let out a scream that shook the hop-toad from the stern to the bow and could be heard on ships within a 50-mile radius. The cook still hadn't had a chance to clear away the breakfast dishes when Friedolf came steaming up into the galley, letting out piercing shrieks. He heaved himself down at the table and began eating cereal, and he was howling with hunger even after his 15th plate. But then there was no more cereal left, and all the cook could do was stand and throw cold potatoes into Friedolf's mouth. As soon as it looked as if he were going to stop, Friedolf let out an angry growl, and the cook realized that if he didn't want to be eaten up himself, all he could do was keep it up. But unfortunately, he only had a miserable 117 potatoes, and when he had thrown the last one into Friedolf's gullet, he quickly made a dash for the door and turned the lock. Then we all stood outside and peeked in at Friedolf through the window. He was whining like a hungry child, and in quick succession he ate up the bread basket and the pitcher and 15 plates. Then he attacked the table. He broke off all 4 legs and ate all the sawdust, and ate until the sawdust formed around his mouth. But he only said that the asparagus they had an awfully wooden taste. Oh, but he only said that for asparagus, they had an awfully wooden taste. He seemed to think that the tabletop tasted better because he smacked his lips as he ate it and said that it was the best sandwich he had ever eaten since he was a child. But then my father felt Friedolf was fully recovered from his consuming disease, and he went in to him and said that now he would have to try to control himself until lunch, which would be served in 2 hours, and then he would get mashed turnips with salt pork. "Oh, Captain," said Friedolf, wiping his mouth. "Please," he said with an eager, hungry look in his eyes. "When is supper going to be served? And can't we have it just a little earlier?" Pippi put her head to one side and looked at Tommy and Danica and their cereal plates. "As I said, you ought to go to sea for a while, and then your poor appetites will be cured in a hurry." Just then, the mailman walked by the Settergren house on his way to Villa Vilcula. He happened to see Pippi through the window and called out, "Pippi Longstocking, here's a letter for you." Pippi was so astonished, she almost fell off of the chair. "A letter? For me? A real letter? I can't believe it. I should see it before I believe it." But it was a real letter, with many strange stamps on it. "You read it, Tommy. You know how," said Pippi. And Tommy began. "My dear Pippalata, when you get this, you might as well go down to the harbor and start looking for the hop-toad, because I'm coming to get you to bring you here to Kurkurdut Island for a while. You ought to at least see the country where your father has become such a powerful king. It's really very nice here, and I think you would like it and feel at home. My faithful subjects are also looking forward very much to seeing the Princess Pippalata, of whom they have heard so much. So there is nothing further to be said in the matter. You are coming, and this is my kingly and fatherly wish. A real big kiss and many fond regards from your old father, King Ephraim I Longstocking, ruler of Kurkurdut Island." When Tommy had finished reading, you could have heard a pin drop in the kitchen. That is the end of our chapter. So make sure you join us tomorrow for chapter 6, which is called Pippi Goes on Board. Bye!